Hello, and welcome to another video of the Targeted Individual Program. Uh, Before I begin to talk about my targeting, I want to talk about this article of what happened on April 12th last month. And this appellate court judge in New York was found dead in the Hudson River. And I started to read the article and about how the police were saying that it was a suicide, and that caused concern with me because being a TI, we know that many TIs are driven to suicide by this program, this coercive persuasion program, and this non-consensual human experimentation program. And so I started reading into this judge story, her background, and she was a very good judge, a very good judge. She was, as the article says, she was a force for good. And one thing I know that the powers that be is that they don't want, particularly when it comes to people of color, they don't want anybody sitting on the judicial bench. They don't want anybody who is promoted within the ranks of law enforcement to take a stand for people of color, particularly black people and Hispanic people. And so, if any judge do they due diligence to hold law enforcement officers accountable for their illegal, unconstitutional action, that judge or those judges will be labeled a threat to society, because society has made a living and has benefited from the ill treatment, the oppression, the incarceration of people of color, the mass incarceration of people of color. And so recently, the police closed the investigation and said that it's most likely that she committed suicide. But I would say to her family, don't believe what the police say. Okay, hire yourself a private investigator, possibly two private investigators, to investigate her death and look into her friends, look into the people who she may have recently come in contact with outside of her family. And, this could be a case where this judge might have been blackmail or being blackmailed, and may have possibly committed suicide. May have, I said. Okay, so or they could have murdered her and made it look like she committed suicide. All right, so I mean, like I said, as TIs, we know that if there anybody within the judicial system, within law enforcement, who are trying to look into what we are saying or who are trying to help us, they may meet the same fate. And this could very well be a message being sent to those people, okay? And to anybody that's on the bench that is willing to hold police and law enforcement officials accountable for the unconstitutional, illegal, and dangerous action. Okay, now let's move on to my target and what has been going on with me. For instance, they started using the police to target me again. And today I had a doctor's appointment. I had pain management. So I had to go today to get an injection in my leg. uh, for the constant pain that I'm having that's prevent me from walking more than 2 blocks. On top of that, my back issue, which I do therapy for. So anyway, I get to the facility on Clarendon and what is it? Nostrand, between Nostrand and 29th, I think. And so I turned down 29th because I drove there. And as I got to the block, I saw this police officer just standing there. He's standing there looking at his phone. He's like a robot, right? Standing there looking at his phone. So there was a parking spot a little bit where he was at, but I was like, you know what? They probably sent him there because as long as I've been going to that uh, doctor's office, I have never seen one police officer on that block. Okay, and today was Wednesday, so parking was suspended. So it just so happened, and this was very early in the morning that I went there, like around 9 o'clock, or a little after 9. So anyway, uh, you know, we got out the car. Actually, I stayed in the car to see what he would do. So I stayed in the car for like about 4 or 5 minutes, and he was still just staring at his phone, looking down, staring at his phone. That's all he was doing. So I got out, went to the doctor's office, told them that I had an appointment for pain management. They're telling me, no, I don't. I said, yes, I do. They're like, no, you don't. I said, yes, I do. So I took out the card that the appointment was written on, and I gave it to one of the receptionists. And she was like, oh, well, they cancel it. I'm like, what do you mean you cancel it? We cancel it. Okay, so you couldn't call me? Oh, well, I wasn't here yesterday, so... But you're telling me that I don't have an appointment today when I'm telling you I have an appointment today. You know? So this is the type of game that they play. And so they didn't call me because they knew I had an appointment. And of course, they wanted to try to intimidate me using the police. And they already set it up. So for them to call me and be like, well, your pain management is canceled, it would defeat the purpose of what they're trying to do. So anyway, I was like, all right, fine. They were like, well, we'll call you later, and to reschedule. It is now 5:23. I haven't received one call from them. Okay, so so got back home and went to pick up my son, and they were trying to send me subliminal messages. Okay, the perpetrators out there about being quiet and blah blah blah. The walking towards me and then fold their lips. As they walk towards me, or they stick their fingers in their ears as usual. And so, got my son, got back to the building, and they'll use teenagers. They use anybody, but today they were using people as well as teenagers. So got to the front of the building, and this teenager comes out the building. It was very odd the way he comes out. Right? Again, it's synchronization. So as you approach, they come at the same time, and he opens I opened the door, or he opens the door. I can't even remember. But he had a Capri Sun in his mouth like this. Okay. Nothing in his hands. So he could have held the Capri Sun in his hands. But again, they're trying to send a subliminal message, right? So this is what they do. So a teenager. So it all comes down to because they don't want me to go pick up my son as usual. So they rehash the same tactics over and over again. And hey, I'm going to see my son. So, they need to stop. Y'all, if you're perp, you're listening, you need to stop it because I will never, ever stop seeing my son. And that's just the way it is. Unless you put me in jail, you kill me, you lock me up somewhere to prevent me from seeing him or seeing any of my kids, that's what you're going to have to do. Because I am not going to do it myself. If that's what you think that you're trying to do, to try to make it look like it is me who stopped going to see my son rather than the action that you're doing, the threatening method, the threatening subliminal messages of being killed, being arrested, to prevent me from not going so they can turn around and say, oh, look, he's crazy. He abandoned his kids. That's not going to happen. All right? So that's the trick that they do, right? So anyway, I get upstairs and I call my brother. Immediately after I call my brother, they started with the police sirens. Okay? Immediately they started with the police sirens again. You know? Again, it's trying to shut you up. Look up coercive persuasion program. Their goal is to shut up the victims, to silence the victims, so they can get away with this illegal, criminal act that they do. Okay? So you could take your subliminal message and kiss my, where the sun don't shine. How about that? And as far as you perps, take that however way you want to take it.